Hello and welcome back to this edition of Daily Actives brought to you by Bootleg Macro. I am Dustin. This is the show where we review the most active stocks on Yahoo Finance every single day. Now, the most active stock on Yahoo Finance today, no surprise, is NVIDIA. I'm pretty sure they had big news, at least based on what they were doing in terms of getting an investment into OpenAI, as well as probably proving that they are continuing to be the number one stock that you want to own currently in the US market. If we look at what we've got here, this first chart here is a line chart. This is going to be looking at what is going to be like a buy and sell range, essentially. The red is going to be the sell top. The green line is going to be the sell or the buy bottom. You can see we've got some of these green bars and some of these red bars that's showing bullish and bearish sentiment. I'm going to go ahead and change this to be log scale. I've actually recently just added this if you've watched any of my previous videos, because I was noticing that things are getting a little tight when I'm looking at the prices when like I'm getting up close like this. So I added this over the weekend so you can see a little bit more log scale so you can see the moves on the line chart a little bit better. I do prefer to be on the 6 month. And if you do end up using this and you're looking for any tool tips on how to use any of these things, you can always go ahead and click this. These tool tips actually are going to show you kind of how to read some of these different little charts. But getting back into NVIDIA, what I am noticing and what I kind of regret, if you watched my previous video from last week, I sold my NVIDIA call options. I bought them somewhere around like 170. And then when I saw that there was news just on what China was doing, I actually ended up selling them. So this is a reminder to myself, not even just to you, that it is stupid to believe in news and you should just be using the actual price, because price is more important than any actual news figure, because price will tell you everything. So if I'm looking at what I see here in NVIDIA, I can say, at least with my indication, that we are going to be seeing a higher high in the top of the range. It's probably going to go bullish in the next day or two here. I love to see what I saw in terms of the type of candle we saw. This thing was up. It looks like it was up 4.7. Yeah, it was nearly up. Yeah, it was nearly up 4%. This must have after hours in it as well. Actually, I do a different calculation because I believe they do from open to close. Is close. I think I may just do open to close. But when I'm looking at it overall, what I can see here is that essentially what we've seen is a big resumption in a bullish trend inside of NVIDIA after we've had some sideways action. It looks like since the very end of August. One of the things that this highlights for me and that I like to pay attention to when I'm looking at stocks is thinking about things in terms of a 6 week period, 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off sort of a thing. Not necessarily saying that 6 weeks is a great enough period to have every single move kind of be encapsulated, but I think that looking at it on a month basis is just not quite enough. It's only 20 days. So if we're looking at what we're seeing in NVIDIA, the thing that I will say that I love as well is that we saw this on higher volume. Today we had 262 million shares, or 266. Here I see 267 million shares traded, which is over the 6 month average of 211 shares. If we are looking at one of the most confirming signals to me based on the way that I personally trade, I'm looking at the actual the bullish sentiment here. So the green that you see on this chart is bullish sentiment. The red is bearish sentiment. The black line is the 50% line. Obviously, you can only have 100% of sentiment higher or bullish or bearish. Right now, we are still at looks like 47.9 bullish percent sentiment, which I love to see, because if we're getting a move like we've seen today, where you're up nearly 4%, and we are seeing that we are still under 50% bullish, that means we have a good amount of time to run. I do have the 15-day here as well, which you can see that we're already over 50% at 51.6. I like to see that. And if you're watching my previous videos, I constantly am talking about how I love to see volatility falling. I want to see volatility falling because I believe when volatility starts falling, that is when you start to see trend expose itself, especially when you're getting a trend change, and especially when you're seeing it go bullish. I love to see that we are hitting the top of the range. We've got sentiment, which is just getting up to 50%. We got the volatility falling. That is like chef's kiss to me when I think about a setup that I'd want to own for a longer period of time. If we look at the raw data here, the data table, you can see we've got the close. It does have the red background, which means it is moderately high, which means it is well above. It's not well above, but it's above the normal range. Back in here, when things were in the green or in the blue, when it was moderately low, that's when I would have been buying. That's actually what I was buying, because what I'm looking for, especially when I see something as bearish like NVIDIA has been recently, like you can see NVIDIA has essentially been bearish since the very middle of August. What I start to look for is when the price starts to get above the trade level, because if it's getting above the trade level, now you're giving me signals and indications that you may be turning your trend. As well as what I would start to see then is that we've got a resumption of bullish in terms of the 5-day look back. We were not yet to the 1 month look back until the 18th. So here would have been the day that I probably should have bought, would have been on September 18th at 176, somewhere in there. It looks like we had it for a couple of days, where we were just starting to see the 1 month transition from negative, which had been rolling negative for a couple of weeks, into positive, as well as then a resumption and continuation of the 3 month, 6 month, and 1 year. Very positive what I'm seeing here in NVIDIA. Let's go ahead and look at Open. Open is an interesting one just because it looks like today it was down 12.43%. That is an ugly move. That is generally an ugly thing to see in a stock. But if you're thinking about what we've seen here inside of Open, I don't think it's too bad. And here's the reason why. And I'm actually not going to be able to use log scale here because these prices are so insane relative to each other. But The thing that I want to call out, and in my previous videos, I'm pretty sure I commented on this. If you go to my YouTube channel and you actually go ahead and look at my individual channel, I'm going to go ahead and look at I'm going to view my channel real quick because I believe that I did a video on open, yeah, just last week. It probably this day or whatever day, probably 5 days ago. The reason why I call it out is because I was specifically saying that when we see the price go above the top of the range, it's pretty much guaranteed going to come down. I was thinking it would come down to around $8. You can see it on the candlesticks here too. We've definitely had a drop down, obviously down like 8.6% today. It looks like the way that Yahoo Finance calculated it, down 12.43%. I bet you that's how I calculate it down here. Yeah. 12.43%. That's kind of an ugly day. But if we look at the raw data, we are right in the middle of the range now. Like we are not moderately low. We are not significantly low. We're not extremely low. We are right in the normal range of outcomes here for open. So I kind of like where this is setting up. In the 5-day, we're still very positive. In the 15-day, 1 month, 3 month. So I like what's happening here. I'm expecting when I continue to look at this is that even though we saw a big move down today, it was not on a lot of volume, right? And when I say not on a lot of volume, I mean not on a lot of volume for something like open, right? It's all relative because open has been consistently doing 200 million shares. Today we saw 246 million shares, but we've seen days of 700 million shares, a billion plus shares traded. And this is all just in the past 90 days. So I would consider today to be a relatively low volume day in open, even though you saw a significant down day. Now, when we're looking at the overall sentiment, I can say that I see that we've been extremely bullish. Obviously, we've been up around 70% recently. We've been up at 67%. We're coming down to a reasonable level at 60%, but I'd want to see it reset. So I'd really be paying attention here to this 15-day. We're still at 57% bullishness, but I would expect this to get down closer to 50% at some point in the next few days here. And that's probably going to be the resetting. And this, as I just mentioned with NVIDIA, it looks like the volatility is just about to start rolling over, which I'd love to see because when volatility starts rolling over, especially when it starts to be negative correlation, that means you're going to get the price to go sideways to up because two negatives make a positive here. So I like personally what I'm seeing in open. I think you've got some really good space to run. It looks like your trade levels just around $7. It's probably going to continue to rise just based on the type of move that we've seen. So I would expect this thing is going to come down maybe below 8, maybe settle in the mid 7s. And that's where I'd start taking a shot if I was really going to be somebody who's going to be looking at open long term. Let's go ahead and see what we got going on in Snap. I definitely did a video on Snap just last week too. Snap has been an incredible mover. I have loved to see what I've been seeing in Snap, specifically because I have mentioned this. I love when the range gets tight like this, especially when you're coming off of like a drop. You can see it was bearish here. It looks like in August all the way through the very beginning of September. I love when you see the range start to get tight like this because I think well, not I think. What I know from the system that I've built is that that means that volatility is starting to fall, and then a volatility explosion higher is usually what you'd expect. And if you watch my video that I did last week, I definitely did a video last week on Snap. It may have been this one. If it was, yeah, it was. If you go back and watch this one from what looks like 6 days ago when I talk about Snap, one of the things that I was talking about was that it was definitely going to fill this gap. I think it was back on the 16th, and I was saying, based on the move that we're seeing in the volatility, because I knew that the volatility was going to be resetting or I knew the volatility would be resetting. I didn't know what the price was going to do just because you're never going to know. But my indication was that we're going to see a move that's going to be significantly higher and it's probably going to gap. The reason why I expected that was because the volatility was resetting. We were seeing a very significant move in the actual volume as we were starting to see some bullish momentum. I saw that we were starting to see some bullish momentum here on my actual day sentiment indicator. We were very much bullish already on the 15-day moving average of sentiment indicator. And now you're getting this resetting like we saw today. I really like what I'm seeing inside of Snap. I think that this is a really good indication of future things to come. I wouldn't necessarily buy it when I look at the actual data, just because obviously we are significantly high and we very recently have been extremely high in the range. So I would want to see it when again, it comes back down to this green range. It's in the yellow or it's in the normal range. Maybe at the most I'd buy in the moderately high just because the moves we've seen have been pretty spectacular, but we are still negative on the 6 month and the 1 year. But it looks like Snap is setting up to be a very good setup for the longer term, probably into the end of the year. I'm not sure what it's going to do, but that's what at least what I'm looking at when I'm looking at how I'd be trading it. Let's go ahead and look at Plug Power. This has been one of those stocks that's been around for a very long time. It has gotten people excited because it's generally been a penny stock. It is one of the small cap names that a lot of people follow because Plug has had multiple stories throughout the years that have really turned people on. Because the one thing I'll say about Plug Power, while we wait for this to load, because I don't have this in my actual data cache and it has to run the calculations in the back for everything. Plug Power has known how to has had known how to latch itself onto every single significant trend that ever existed. This thing, as you can see, if we look back 5 years, this thing has been up at $40, right? This thing is currently trading at what? 250. Okay. So as you're watching this, if you're probably trading plug, I just wanted to be aware at least of what has gone on in the stock before. Not necessarily the company, but at least how the stock can behave. You can get some aggressive moves high and low. And what we're seeing right here, what I really kind of like to see is that we saw, again, very much like I mentioned in Snap, we see a tightness in the range, a little bit of bearishness, and we see a move that's higher, and then it's at the top of the range and even higher, and it's really going parabolic. The type of move we saw today, I don't even, what was it? It was up 21% today, as you probably would expect, just because the type of move that you're going to see in something that's this small and it's up 47 cents. That's just how math works. The thing I love, though, again, is going to be high volume. We've got very high volume over the past 4 days. We've got bullish sentiment, which is just breaking out. It was just hovering around 50, 49, 48, 48, and now we're up at 58% in just a few days. You can see that it was very bullish here on the 15-day sentiment as well. Again, very similar to Snap. We saw a resetting in the volatility on the 17th. We continue to see the volatility breaking out. We see the correlation is positive. It is falling a little bit, but that's okay. If we look at the overall chart here, obviously we're extremely high. We're up 21% today. You would expect that that's pretty high. We're above the top of the range. We do see a higher high, which I love to see. So I would expect that we're going to see the price fall back pretty aggressively over the next few days. Not necessarily tomorrow or the next day, but probably by the end of the week. Just because when you're up 21% in one day, you really need to digest those gains. So it is positive on the 1 day, 5 day, all the way through the 1 year, which I love to see. Obviously, the signal that my system gave was back here when it went bullish on 9/11 RP. We were still below the trend level or the trade level, but you can see we were positive on the 1 day, the 5 day, and the 3 month. That's always very positive when you're positive on a 3 month. But you can see that we flipped bullish back on 9/11. Let's go ahead and see what else we have. I know what is it? BigBear.ai. BBAI. I've definitely reviewed this in a previous video from last week if you were very curious about what I said. I'm pretty sure I was talking about how this is going to be a good setup as well, just because I think that this was showing very similar signs in terms of the move that we saw here to what Snap was like, because it had a nice run up, it had a drop down, it was basing for a while. And during that basing, we had very low volume. So I was very convinced that we were going to see a very good move inside of Bear AI. If we go ahead and look, we've gone bullish. The price is above the top of the range, which is a very, very, very positive signal for at least probably like the next like what 1 to 3, if not longer months. The negative thing that I would say is that we are very negative on the sentiment indicator, or at least were, but that's generally something I'd look at as a positive. We are seeing big moves, but it hasn't gone bullish yet. We're still at 46% bullish sentiment on the day indicator, as well as only on the 15-day, only 53%. Again, the thing that I love is watching the trend or the volatility actually start to fall. I think that's a very positive sign for trend as it starts to change. If we go ahead and look at the data table here, we've been significantly high, it looks like, for the past 5 days. The volume has been significantly high as well. We've been extremely high in volume back on the 16th when it was at $5.94. Obviously, the move that we've seen has been an insane move from $6 up to $7 over the course of 5 days. If we look, though, we are positive on the 1 day all the way through. That's very, very positive. We do have a future price path and price to rise, which I like to see. Let's go ahead and look at NIO. I've definitely done videos on NIO throughout periods of time. NIO is one of those ones that I am always and forever going to be expecting to have a much better move than it actually is. The reason why I'd say that is just because if I go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh the screen here. The reason why with NIO is that NIO is one of those stocks that, while it is by itself a stock, it is slightly a cult. Now, I'm not saying that NIO isn't something that I would follow. I'm not saying that their cars are bad. I'm not saying that the company's bad. I'm saying the way that people treat this company, the way that I see people online talking about NIO, they make it seem like this is like a slight religion. I think it's probably because people expect this to be very similar to a Tesla in the long run, but I'm not fully convinced that that's going to happen. So as the data starts to load here, we're going to see some very aggressive moves, especially if we look like, let's just look here. So this thing, very similar to Plug, was back at $40 5 years ago. This thing has not even sniffed $20 since 2022, right? So just hold the horses on thinking that this is going to retire you and your family. That's the only thing I would say, because I've seen people get really aggressively long into these things, especially when you have this consolidation through April, May, and June, and you see a big breakout in the middle of July here, where it's at like what? It was at $3.22, and now we're up at $5.29 or so, or five something. These are the type of moves that can really suck people in. I guess it's at 691. This is the type of move that can really suck people in. I would expect that we will see it resume higher because the top of the range is going higher. The bottom of the range is going to start pushing down, but the volatility here is so high that you can get chopped up in options if you're buying this thing. If we look at the volume, the concerning thing that I'd say is that we saw a big volume today on the move down. You can see we are still very positive when it looks like on the bullishness versus the bearishness. I can see that, yes, we're very much above 54%. But if we look at what we're seeing a resetting in the volatility. So I would want to see, personally, what I would want to see is I'd want to see this roll. I would want to see this volatility roll over very similar to what it did here in the middle of August, roll over. I'd want to see this correlation roll over, which it is starting to go negative, and then you'd see the price go sideways to up. If you're looking to buy, in my opinion, for what I'd be looking at, this is the place where I'd be taking a shot just because it is in the normal range. So 691, today was an ugly day. It was down 6.24%. I'm sure that hurts for a lot of people potentially watching this video. But I would say that we're in the normal range. We've got a higher low, a higher high. We are actually getting close to the trade level, which I kind of like here in terms of what I'd be looking at inside of NIO. Not a huge fan, but I could see where there would be a very good indication that that's a place to go. Let's go ahead and look at Intel here. Intel, very interesting one. Between the US government taking a position, between them having like a new investor, I believe in NVIDIA, which was the first stock we covered. Very interesting moves that we're seeing. Obviously, the move that we're looking at right now is a little exaggerated because we did have a gap up, it looks like on the 18th. So we have had 3 days in a row of essentially down, even though it's not really down because it's up significantly. You can tell that based on the 17th, we saw a significant amount of volume. That's what contributed to that gap up. It looks like it is resetting though because we have gone negative in the sentiment. We're at 42% bullish. We're at 57% bearish. We have been bearish, it looks like, even on the 15-day going back quite a while. The concern that I would have is that we are resetting in the volatility. My expectation is that what we're going to do is probably get like a double hump. So we're probably going to get this up, this down, probably like another hump and then come back down. If the volatility starts to fall and we're already negative in the correlation, you would expect the price to go sideways to up, which is kind of positive. We are truly coming back down to what most likely is going to be a normal range. You can see here on the 18th when that news was announced, we're extremely high. The next day, it was down significantly, but we were still significantly high. And then today we're moderately high. So if it can come back down somewhere closer to probably like 27, 26, I know it's going to hurt for people, but you're still going to be up significantly from where you were even pre-announcement because it was 24.90 before. So if it settled at $26, you're still up, what, 5% from where it was. So I like what I'm seeing in terms of Intel. I would definitely wait for it to get back into its range. I'm probably going to add this onto my portfolio just so I can start tracking it. Actually, what I should honestly do is probably set an alert on this thing. I should definitely set an alert on this thing. That's exactly what I should do. I should be setting an alert for when this gets down to somewhere in the range around 26 bucks. But I do like what I see in Intel. I think it just needs probably a day or two to get back into the normal range. Then I would definitely look at this as probably what I would consider to be probably something I'm buying in my actual account. Let's go ahead and look at Tesla. Tesla is always an interesting character. I haven't looked at Tesla in a while. I've definitely done videos on Tesla. If you want to go back, I definitely did a video on Tesla 6 days ago. I'm just blown away by the move that I've seen. I definitely want to buy this thing around like 330, and this thing is at like clearly 430 now. If we look at this on a 6-month chart, what I love in terms of an indication of a higher move is you can see we got a tighter range all the way here through, it looks like June, July, and August. We get a move higher. The price goes above the top of the range, and then the top of the range continues to go higher as well, while the price continues to essentially glide at the top. Even on the candlestick chart, we can see it very, very clearly. What I love as well is that these moves that we are seeing here were on higher volume. You can see volume is even significantly higher than it was back here. Obviously, volume is 106 million shares being traded. Love to see it. If we're looking on the daily sentiment, this thing has been positive since May, even though the price didn't really go anywhere. That's a very good indication. We can see now we're at 70% bullishness. I would expect probably a pullback because we're looking at 70% bullishness, even on the 15-day moving average. I would surmise my indications, my theories, my thoughts are that what we're going to see is probably a rollover in this volatility. If it stays negative, we're probably going to see the price go sideways to up just a little bit, but I'm not expecting a huge move anytime soon in Tesla, only because, again, you can see we've been extremely high, significantly high, and now we're moderately high. I would expect this trade level to get closer to 400 soon. The price probably settles around there, and then we can reset for a move higher from there. Let's go ahead and see what we got going on in Apple. Apple, what a story this thing is, because if we look at this thing, even over the past year, Apple's had essentially a negative move, right? Like it was 227 back in September of last year. It is now like 256. And it really didn't do much in between. Like it was at 259, it looks like back in December of this year. It essentially fell all the way down to 172. And now we're seeing a nice bullish move again in it. I do like the moves I'm seeing in Apple. Full disclosure, I have purchased into Apple probably in like the 230s now, just because I think I bought back in here, like September 11th, somewhere around here, just because I'll show you exactly why I bought. The reason why I bought was because if I'm looking at it from this perspective around the 10th and 11th, what I was seeing was we had very much bullish momentum. That's what these green bars mean. I was seeing that it was bullish. I was seeing that the range was getting tighter. I was suspecting that we were going to see a tailwind to tech. And then if I look at where we were seeing a small pullback just below the 50 in terms of this bullish sentiment indicator. We were seeing that kind of be done, but at the same time, right around here, we were starting to see the volatility fall. So my indication was I see bullish sentiment, I see the price dipping down, I see sentiment is dipping down, I see that volatility starting to roll over, which I love. And at that time, correlation was positive. So I knew that correlation could easily go negative, and once it went negative and the volatility was falling, you'd see the price go sideways to up, which is what you were seeing personally. Because the reason why I'd say that is because when you're seeing days where it's only going up 61 basis points, 35 basis points, those are days where you're like, okay, this is interesting because it's clearly exhibiting bullish behavior because it's moderately high, but it's not being so bullish that it is like screaming at you, which means it's essentially coiling and building up pressure. That was the way that I looked at it based on how I look at my data. Right now, we can see that this thing is extremely high. This is where I need to start selling a little bit of Apple just to kind of give to lock in my profits. We can see we got a higher high in the range, but we're extremely high, which means I expect it to come back into the normal range at a certain point, which means right now it'd probably come back in like the mid 240s. We did see really low volume today, which is surprising to be honest. That we saw that little bit of volume. Obviously, that volume is not correct for my data provider because it looks like we saw 101 million shares traded today, even though it's only saying 2.9 million. I'm assuming I got to talk to my data provider about what I'm getting here. But still, when I look at Apple, I am very intrigued with the move that we've seen, but I'm suspecting that this price move is, I'm not saying it's done, but I do think that it's definitely something that I'm going to be paying attention to in terms of trying to sell for a little bit of profit. Let's go ahead and look at Grab. Let's go ahead and look at Grab. I don't know why I'm getting this error all of a sudden, but I can definitely say Grab is one. If you go back and you look, I definitely covered Grab last week, at least in one video, if not another video. I definitely bought Grab around $6, and I said I was going to because Grab was showing it's just indications of things like good things to come. Again, I keep highlighting this tight range. You've got bullishness. You get a breakout where the price is above. You see that the price continues to go above. The top of the range continues to ride. The volume is there to support it. The bullishness is not crazy. It's right above the 50% level. You see it on the daily and on the 15-day. You saw a reset in the volume and the volatility. Right now, we are looking at what could be potentially like gaps higher. And I think I called that out last week as well. The thing that I'm looking at now, though, is that, and I did buy it even though it was moderately high and significantly high, because sometimes I don't think you don't always get an opportunity to buy into something, even though it is in the top of its range. This is a stock that, at least as somebody who's traveled around the world, I've definitely used the company and I understand what the opportunity is in terms of the market. I don't trade on fundamentals whatsoever. I trade purely based on price. But when I know that there's a stock that is essentially a $6 stock, which is a $30 billion company, and I'm like, okay, I've ordered Grab to get a motorbike to pick me up in Hanoi. I've ordered pho or I've ordered like noodles in Saigon. I've used this in Thailand. I've used this in the Philippines. I've used this in Malaysia. I know what Grab is going to be. So I look at it and I'm like, yeah, this is probably going to be one of those opportunities that many Americans just aren't fully aware that this is like Uber, but for Asia with way more customers. Let's go ahead and look at what we got. Is there anything else that's even remotely interesting? I'm going to go ahead and look. I'm going to skip Sound AI. I'm going to go ahead and look at Mara. Mara is always interesting to me because I know a few different people who put a significant amount of money into it, and this thing just really hasn't moved. If we look at this move, though, I do like, again, very tight range. We see a flip to bullishness here on the 11th. We see the price going above the top of the range. The top of the range is continuing to break out. We can see it here as well, even on the candlestick chart. What I like is we're seeing high volume in Mara. We can see our sentiment is not crazy. It's only at 53% on the daily. Looks like it's around mid 50s on the 15-day. Got the volatility has reset and starting to break out. We go ahead and look at the chart, or at least from the data table, you can see we were significantly high, we were extremely high, significantly high, and now we're moderately high. I would suspect that Mars is going to come back into its range at a certain point. That day is not today, though. Now, let's wrap this up by looking at what I just found out today is the producer of Tylenol, which I believe is what is it, Kenvue? Sorry for you. Bad day to be one of the things that just got picked on in the US. But the reason why I want to highlight it is because I think it's important for us to recognize that sometimes you can see that something is going to happen just by looking at a stock. The reason why I say that is because look at this. I didn't know what Kenvue was before an announcement today saying that like the US administration wasn't going to recommend Tylenol for pregnant women, but I can definitely tell you that the market knew something. The reason why I say that is because look at this thing was bullish in July. This thing started to go negative, it looks like in August. And for some reason, this thing is down lower than it's been, it looks like, in probably a year. Yeah, this thing is lower than it's been in an entire year. Obviously, it was down a lot today. It looks like it was down, what, 7% today. but this thing was already down as of yesterday. This thing was already bearish. This thing was already in a bearish trend. You already saw massive volume on, it looks like the fourth here, where somebody was like getting out, right? Somebody was getting out back here on July 4th, on July 13th as well. Like these are significant moves because the actual average, it looks like, is only 17.5 million. People were trading 30 million, 32 million. Like when you see spikes like this in terms of the volume and randomly, those are like hedge funds. Those are institutions getting out. When you see a spike like this, 135 million shares traded in one day, that's an institution getting out. You see 56 million when they only normally trade 17.5 million shares in a day. Even today, while today was a big day, it wasn't even the biggest day in the past year. Like somebody knew something. I'm not saying who knew. I'm not saying how they knew it. I'm just saying somebody knew something and the stock was telling you, right? You can see this thing has been bearish for quite a while, right? It's been extremely bearish even in August, been extremely bearish in the 15-day. You can see the volatility has been freaking out. You can see the volatility has been elevated and elevated a lot today as it got pushed down in terms of just the overall announcement from the administration. If we look at the bearishness, like we're looking at bearishness here. This bearishness was essentially confirmed at the very beginning of August at $21. Now today it closed at 17 or 16.97. This stock has been down. It's down on a 1 day, 5 day, 15-day, 1 month, 3 months, 6 month, and 1 year. Now, when the 1 year happened, the negative rolling 1 year happened on the 14th of August. Someone knew something. Who? I'm not saying when. All I'm telling you is that this thing has been on a negative 3 month rolling return since June, right? I'm not sure why. All I can tell you is that somebody knew something because the way that this stock has moved has told you that this thing has lower lows. The trade level continues to go lower. The bottom of the range continues to break out lower. You've had lower highs in the top of the range. There is something that has been in the market telling you that this stock is not going to it's not going to have good news going forward. And today was confirmation because the administration came out against it. So not telling you that's what you should be paying attention to. I'm just telling you that the price will always tell you what's going to happen. Now, if you've made it this far and you're interested in what I'm doing, you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter. You can go ahead and follow me on YouTube. You can go ahead and check out Bootleg Macro. If you're interested in anything that's similar to this, I do have like a simple product. I do a crypto briefing. It comes out. I just changed it. It'll be coming out at 6:15 Central Time, so 7:15 a.m. on the East Coast. You can go ahead and actually you could sign up for the free one that comes out on Fridays, I believe at 11 a.m. East Coast time. If you want, you can try it for 7 days where you're going to get the crypto newsletter every single morning. It's going to give you the ranges for crypto. It's literally free for 7 days and it's $10 a month. This is exactly what it looks like. So it's going to give you the major, I think like 19 or 20 different cryptos. Bitcoin's going to give you the price, the volume, the sentiment. You've got the exact same price guide and everything that I've been showing here. And you're going to get the 1 day, 5 day, 1 month return. You can get the trade level, the buy level, the sell level. If you're interested in this tool, you can always go ahead and sign up. This tool is actually free to use. So if you come to traderanges.com, you don't even need the pop-up. You can just go to traderanges.com. And then if you come here, you can go ahead and sign up. You can sign up either with your Google or with your Twitter. I do give you the ability to search 30 stocks. You can add things in your portfolio. You don't necessarily get the ability to access like the G20, the crypto page, the currencies page. But if you do sign up for the premium newsletter, you do get access to the crypto page where you'll be able to see all the information that comes in the crypto newsletter. And then as well, you're going to get the same percentages from the bottom, from the top, and from the trade level. You can go ahead and if you want, you can always add a alert to something. These are free and included as well. So you can add an alert if you want to see a price target, like when it gets above 115, because now we're waiting on that again. You can go ahead and create an alert and then you'll get sent an email automatically. If you want to check it out, it's straightforward, very easy to use. You want to check out your alerts, you can see them right here. So please feel free to follow me, comment below, tell me what you're checking out. Do you agree with any of my trades? Do you disagree with any of my trades? Do you like any of these stocks? Do you think anything is good? But I will talk to you soon. Have a great day.